evening, everyone. On this Friday evening, we have Professor Manish Singhal with us, who is going to take us through his insights on unsolved tears and untold pandemic. So, when we look at some of these sportsmen and some of the athletes and the amount of just the sheer amount of effort that goes into achieving what they set out to achieve. What are some of the learnings that we can draw, or what are some of the observations that you have had looking at some of them and its impact on their well-being, mental well-being, and psychological well-being in particular, and particularly also from the perspective of the society they live in, the interactions they have. So, particularly drawing from the Olympics itself, the sports field itself, what are some of the things that you observe?
I think one particular point that we'll need to look at, and thank you for bringing up that idea of children and parenting, etc. Usually, at least in India, where we set a great store by education, every time for the student or for the child, it is said, "Beta 10th ka number theek aa jaye, fir to jeevan mein aaram hai." Okay, there is enjoyment for you after you get a particular percentage is 10th. Yeah. After that, it is the 12th. After that, it is the graduation. After that, it is an MBA or whatever it is. And every time, the kind of people that you are competing against are obviously taking you to the next orbit. Okay, right. And therefore, there is an increasing pressure as you go along. For example, all of us corporate executives as well, you are working for a particular kind of company, you go to another which has got a better profile, which has got a better role, and we probably think that we have what it takes to be able to deal with it, what may. And likewise, I think even for the sportsman, isn't it similar? You probably come to the school team, then you come to the college team, then the university team, then you represent the district or the state, nation, etc., etc., etc. And therefore, I think it is the same issue. Because of which I think particularly for the athletes, which may not be the case as much for us, is about the fear of a career-ending injury.
Absolutely.
Okay, career-ending injury. And then I think a very, very central idea is going to be about that of your identity. For example, if the athlete is nothing but only an athlete, then obviously there is that much more pressure. So I think one particular learning from here for each one of us would be, can I diversify my identities? And for which there is this item which is coming increasingly into the focus, which is the power of vulnerability. As a leader, could I kind of portray the kind of insecurities or the vulnerabilities that I have as a leader, which will probably allow people to speak openly about this. Otherwise, if I come across as a demigod, if I come across as the one who cannot do any wrong, no one will be prepared to admit. There'll be no innovation, there'll be no creativity, none of the sort. So that I think are kind of parallels that I draw between these two fields.
Yeah, and when we talk about, particularly from the point of view of unsolved tears and almost being a pandemic which is going unnoticed, what can leaders and managers do themselves, or people in corporate do themselves?
A particular point that I think is very, very important for the leaders and for the managers to realize, that you cannot really have an always on culture. You can't necessarily only keep stimulating people, stimulation, without a relaxation. Because by the time a person goes back home, provided we are coming to offices, by the time you come back home, you're only a nervous wreck. It is your family which sees the worst of you. You've got these fangs that come out from here, you've got the horns that emerge from here, because in the office, you are obviously worried about the EMIs that you still have to pay. Right? I can't really anger my boss. I can't really do this, that, and the other. And therefore, somewhere or the other, I think if we could humanize the workplace and realize that the emotions, whether we call them the so-called positive emotions or the negative emotions, they are a natural part of who you are. And therefore, if we allow each other that psychological safety that
Yes.
Amy Edmondson talks about, or probably the kind of space that is required for people to be themselves, for doing which there are two, three things that can be suggested. Is it possible? Is it possible that in our workplaces we have designated hours which will be no meeting hours? No meeting hours.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so maybe 3 to 4 p.m. or maybe 4 to 5 p.m. or whatever it is, and you're allowing people to do their own thing. Likewise, is it possible? Is it possible that you could have a no meeting Friday?
Yeah.
Sacrilegious perhaps, but then still, could we try to think of that? And could we make available some time for people at the start of our meeting where we allow people to kind of touch base with their feelings? John Kabat-Zinn pioneered in the US. There's a 3-minute breathing space that he talks about. Okay, so you start with by saying what's there, what's happening to your thoughts, what's happening to your emotions, and what is it which is happening to the sensations throughout the body. It could be a pain, a kink somewhere or the other. Yeah. First step. Second step is that you start focusing your attention upon a particular anchor. That anchor could be your breath, that anchor could be your heartbeat, anything. Yeah. And after that, can you get back? Once again, similar idea. So if we do something like that, and if as leaders, which is what I was saying earlier, could I start my meetings and maybe start sharing the kind of areas that I'm personally struggling with? Think about it. So if the team listens to the top management team's personal struggles, won't they feel that much more encouraged to be able to express themselves more authentically, more honestly?
Yeah.
So those things are important. Yes.
How do we make people a little more opened up, a little more candid, and in terms of being able to share what they want to share, rather than always being socially desirable?
Carol Dweck mindset. Okay, wherein she talks about a fixed mindset and she talks about a growth mindset. And the idea is, do I see myself as something which is already given to me? Right, it's already given, or is my potential, or whatever it is that I do, is it constantly improvable? Many years back during my engineering, I read this term called Kaizen. That delta. Okay, so that continuous improvement. So now the continuous improvement would be when you're allowed to kind of commit some errors, make some mistakes. Otherwise, the best way to avoid a criticism is not to do anything, right?
Absolutely, that's true. I think so. Managers' ability to create psychological safety is through his or her own vulnerability, is what you're saying. They should ensure that they are themselves vulnerable, they are at least able to tell people that they are vulnerable also. And it's okay to be vulnerable. And that's a kind of culture which can be a growth culture.
True.
And from a mental well-being perspective, your last thoughts on that? How do we get rid of this Atlas syndrome? People seem to be carrying all the weight of the earth on their back while going to work and while living in their usual lives.
One of the ways to, I think, and that is a mental shift that we need to make. That's a mental shift that we need to make.
So what you said earlier on is very relevant. That 3-minute, 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, time for yourself, reflection, contemplation, and watching yourself, observing yourself is a very, very important part, which more and more of us should inculcate. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on this thought space. Look forward to see you again in 2 weeks' time. Till then, thank you so much. Bye-bye.